Welcome back, everyone, to Championship Formula. I am your host, Casey.
With your boy, Thomas.
And we're back live again at 100 subscribers. At 100 subscribers.
Woo, yeah, woo.
Thank you.
For real, though, thanks to everybody who's out here supporting us. It really means a lot, you know?
Yeah, it really does mean a lot to us. We find motivation in continuing to grow, and the support and the criticism is both awesome for us. We take everything into consideration, and you know we're not professionals, and we only have a little bit of time to do this every so often. So when we do get to do it, we value everyone's opinions and their critiques of us. But thank you, 100 subscribers. Planning on doing something special, especially for the 100th subscriber that I know personally. They waited, I guess, to be the 100th subscriber, and they already know what they're getting. So I will post something. If you want to see what the gift is, then just check out my Instagram, which is Championship Formula. The Twitter is Championship Formula 2 or Championship Formula F or Championship FO2. It doesn't spell out the full thing. Couldn't get the full rights to Championship Formula because that's NASCAR or something like that. But anyways,
Yikes, feels bad.
And then my Facebook page, which I'm still working on. I'm still working on a Championship Formula Facebook page, but that will be coming up very soon as well.
And you know, it's just not done because I'm not working on it.
Because you're not working on it.
Because I'm not working on it.
Okay. But yeah, I just need to spend a little time on getting that together, and then we'll be fully operational on this whole Championship Formula deal. Things to be looking forward to. We're going to be doing some analysis videos, I think. We're going to be including some highlights and some pictures into our podcast to give it a little bit more life. I know you just all love staring and watching us talk, but
they're here for me, not you. Don't lie.
You're probably right. This gorgeous fella here. I mean, I think it's just something that I personally want to work on. You know, I do the editing, and I haven't been doing a whole lot of editing. We just record and post it. Basically,
You do all the work, and I just show up. That's basically how it works.
Yeah, 5%, 95%.
Yeah, definitely.
It's equal.
Probably less than 5%, to be honest with you.
It's fair and equal.
Fair,
but
fair.
You know, it is what it is. I just wanted to let everyone know what the status quo is now at 100 subscribers, and be looking forward to more improvements. And if you have anything to say, if you want to give us any encouragement or any sort of push to a direction, if that's doing highlight videos or if that's doing critiques, any sort of thing like that, just let us know in the comments down below.
Or if you just want to tell us we're bad, I mean, if you want to give us some criticism, some constructive criticism, we'll take it and kind of run with it, go where we need to.
Yeah. And if you're new, subscribe.
Definitely.
I know you're going to love us. Let's just begin right off the bat with the AFC West.
The fun AFC West, where a lot of people are saying some crazy things.
Yeah, there's lots of different opinions on the AFC West. Some of them are garnered, and not Minshew.
That's exactly what I was thinking as soon as you said that.
And some of them I feel like are a little bit out there, and people say that the AFC West is one of those divisions that could potentially have all the teams go to the playoffs. I personally don't feel like that. I feel like the Raiders just have a lot to work on defense. Chargers, we'll see how their offensive line improved, and with worse quarterback play and a rookie quarterback potentially starting, that usually doesn't bode well for your team. And then the other two teams, Broncos and the Chiefs, I'm very high on, but we will get into that later. We're going to start with the Raiders first. They added lots of receiver talent to help Derek Carr make his last-ditch effort in proving himself to be the starting quarterback. And honestly, from looking at just the PFF grades alone and looking at his stats, he's got a lot of great stats, past and present. I think that maybe having this extra talent will get him over that hump, which you can look at as being a franchise guy. A lot of people thought Andy Dalton was a franchise guy, but he was surrounded by talent that elevated his game. So do you take the chance in Derek Carr being your franchise guy? I don't know necessarily. I feel like he might also be a little bit limited just because of the overall team itself, the defense not being the greatest, and the fact that they only had like Keller at tight end, and it's like Tyrell Williams, I think, the receiver. Now that they've got Ruggs there to help stretch the field, I think that they'll have a little bit better production, at least throwing the football. They got a great running back in Josh Jacobs. I think that really will solidify this offense.
Yep.
And all the additions that they made on defense with Corey Littleton and Prince Mukamara, Jeff Heath, Demarius Randall, a lot of the talent that they picked up in free agency was not necessarily star talent, but it was definitely starter potential to like better round out the defense. They had a lot of holes, and they had a lot of positions that were not starting quality. So this offseason really helped them kind of not necessarily give them star talent, but a lot of depth. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about how depth can go a long way. And hopefully their cornerback that they also picked up at number 19, Arnett or something like that. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he will hopefully be starting quality as well.
Yep.
And now that we've gotten past the couple of drafts when they traded Khalil Mack away, this is a very big year for our head coach Gruden, because if those picks don't turn out to be worth a Hall of Fame talent, then was it worth it?
You know, I think one thing that kind of bodes well for the Raiders specifically is they have a lot of young talent. Even last year with Jacobs, in the backfield, they had a lot of just young talent that can be developed, which is kind of at a bad time for the Raiders, I think, because like Derek Carr, like you were saying, he's not young anymore by any means, especially being injured, 2 seasons ago, I think, something like that, 2 or 3 seasons ago. I think he got hurt for a little while. And then it's just the Raiders, they have all the potential to be good. They have some of the talent around Derek Carr that I think they need, but like Josh Jacobs, he can't fully carry your team, so you're going to need some things around him. Like, yeah, you can have a really good rookie or sophomore, in this case, running back now. But at the end of the day, you really got to have some things around him so he can get a break every once in a while, or he can get so they don't just focus the run game. Like, they'll have Josh Jacobs, they'll just key in on him, and everybody on the defense will be looking for him, and he'd go out for a pass, but everybody will be on him, or they'll hand him the ball and he'll start to run and then just get absolutely demolished because everyone's focused on that rather than the long ball or
and having Henry Ruggs out there, that really helps them stretch the field. He ran a really fast 40 time. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was pretty ridiculous. I think it was like 4.28.
Yeah, I think that's close. Yeah,
it's either something like that or very sub 4.3. And either way, he's ridiculously fast. They needed that to stretch the offense down the field, and with all the additions, especially on defense, like I said, this team is going to start rounding out more. Do I think it's enough to edge out the Chiefs or get a 5th or 6th spot in the draft, or not the draft, the playoffs?
The playoffs, yep.
No, I don't think so. I think the team still ends up going 7-9, And the only reason I say that is because the games that they only lost like 3 games within a touchdown, and that if they won those 3, they would be 10-6, and that's not bad. But all the other games they lost by an extreme margin, and part of that is from coaching, and part of that is from having a poor defense or turning the ball over too many times. And I don't think the team is just there yet. I would have been a lot higher on them if they had a better draft. And not to say that they didn't have a great draft. It's just that they didn't have what the Broncos had. They had an amazing draft, and the Raiders only had so much to work with. They only had 7 picks, but they only picked 1 through 4, the first and fourth rounds. So their thought process was get the higher skill talent and not quantity, which is fine. But hopefully those picks end up working out, and it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do with Derek Carr. I think he might actually end up being the guy there, and if that's the case, they might be hurting a little bit. As a fan, you're like, well, he made the necessary steps to move forward, and I feel like he will have a really good season next season, put up good numbers, but he's not a guy that is clutch, and he's not going to be the gunslinger to compete against Patrick Mahomes. And we've seen plenty of time with him, and he only had 1 or 2 winning seasons under his belt. So it's, I don't know. I feel like maybe Raiders go like 7-9, 6-10 this upcoming season, and I know that's shortchanging them a win from last season, but they also didn't. They didn't like come to me as like a surprise team. Like they're not a team that should have been better than 7-9. They are flat out 7-9 team. They might have even overperformed or overachieved that record by a little bit. And, that could have been coaching. That could have been just I'm doubting their defense more than I should. But, only adding a couple of star talent players or ex-star talents like Prince Mukamara and Corey Littleton, I don't think that will be enough to push them over the edge.
I really think I've said this for a while. When it comes to Gruden, either of them, honestly, either of the Grudens, I think at the end of the day, they're like good guys, like good guy coaches kind of like thing. Like they're good guys, but as for coaching, they make some questionable decisions, like Khalil Mack and that. It's like, I don't know about that, but like you said, if that ends up working out, then good on him. But I really think a big part of it is one. So that we all know they signed Vontaze Burfict, right, last season, and then Vontaze got thrown out after 4 games and yada yada. Everybody's mad that he got thrown out after 4 games, and this wasn't a hit and yada yada. It wasn't a hit that should have got him thrown out and suspended. But when the league looked at that, they were like, well, he has a history, and I want to discuss this a little bit. It's kind of unfair, especially him coming from the Bengals, so we know kind of specifically. Vontaze kind of gets a bad rep. He does sometimes play a little like more dirty, I think. And I come from a school of thought where I don't really see it as dirty necessarily as much as playing hard. Like he played like guys used to play back in the day, like back in like the 80s, 90s. Like they would go hard, and when you got hit, you knew you got hit. And I'm not talking about the straight helmet to helmet or shoulder pad to helmet kind of stuff where they're
the ankle twist that he did with
Yeah.
Cam. There is instances of him playing dirty.
Yeah.
But his game is built off of hard play.
Yeah. So that's kind of especially for Raiders fans, they'll probably know this. Reggie Nelson left Cincinnati and went out to Oakland and played for a little while. And Reggie Nelson was one of the, like, in my opinion, one of the better safeties of like the 2000 or the 2010s or whatever, like when he was playing.
Last decade.
Yeah. So my thing is, like, he would when he would come across the field and hit you, Reggie Nelson would hit you, and you're not holding on to the ball, and if you are, you're like a serious man. Like you're a serious player. And I think that's kind of what Vontaze tries to do a lot. And we can probably have a whole entire podcast on this, but like the hits with Clay Matthews had last year or 2 years ago when he just kept getting flagged because he was taking down a quarterback too hard. And he really was trying to figure out how he's supposed to play the game. And that's one of the reasons why, going back to the last podcast, that I think I heard, not Khalil Mack, the middle linebacker from the Panthers. Luke Kuechly. I heard that's one of the reasons why Luke Kuechly retired, was because the game wasn't what he wanted to play anymore. It was basically turning into a game that he thought he couldn't play at his best ability because he wasn't allowed to play the way he was taught to. And I kind of agree with that, because I'm going to be honest with you. I do like the game getting safer, because that's a necessary. Like, we can't have all these concussions and head blows and all this. But there is a certain point when you got to realize that the quarterback is a player on the field. They signed up to play football. So them getting hit, and I'm not talking about the ones where they like absolutely drive them into the ground, put their shoulder in their rib cage and just try to hurt them on purpose. But there was, you'll remember specifically when Tom Brady went back, and I think it was against the Chiefs. One of the players touched his helmet.
This was the championship.
Yeah, this is the AFC Championship. He barely touched his helmet. Like, he barely even grazed it with a finger, and they said that it was roughing the passer because he made contact with his helmet. And he didn't even really make contact. Like, he grazed the top of his helmet with a finger. And you're going to, it's things like that where it's like, the refs have to use their discretion more on stuff, where if it's blatantly kind of a call like that, then yeah. But if it's just a grazing of their helmet with a hand, honestly, you're gonna do more damage to your hand than you are their helmet or their head.
Yeah.
Where if it's head to head, it's understandable. But to get back on topic a little bit, the Raiders, I feel like their defense is just they have some potential to do some things and get going, but I really just don't think they brought in enough in the offseason I haven't really heard. Is Vontaze coming back next season for them?
I don't know. I did not research that. That was actually an afterthought for me.
Yeah.
Just because I don't feel like he would make that big of an impact anyways. Yeah. I could be totally wrong, and he just flat out has a career season if he does come back. But
yeah, I don't know if they're even. I don't even know if they're going to reinstate him into the NFL after that. Because even if he does come back at this point, refs are just looking at him to throw a penalty. So, I mean, I don't know that would even help the Raiders, because the Raiders would just get penalized more for the most part. Yeah. But I do think as a whole, the Raiders have a decent amount of potential, but it's really hard in the division that they're in with the Broncos, which we're going to talk about later, and the Chiefs, which we're going to talk about later. Both are just better teams in worse divisions. I can't even think of one, but say if they were in the division with the Cowboys and the Eagles and them, they might have a little a better chance of doing more. But it's those 4 games a year that they got to play against the Broncos and the Chiefs, and it's okay, those are rough games for them. So then you got to look at the rest of their schedule and kind of hash out where they're gonna perform and which teams have a better offense. Because against better offenses, I don't think their defense is going to shut anything down. They're going to have to, with their offense, going to have to try to play with the other team's offense and kind of keep up. So if the other team has a good defense, then they might start to get in trouble.
Yeah, the Clinton Farrell and Crosby, the other end on that side, it'll really depend on their development too. Mm-hmm. They did decently last season. I did watch some film on, it's either Crosby or something like that. I can't remember what his last name is, but he
Max Crosby?
Yeah, Max Crosby. Yeah. He has misleading numbers and stats relative to other defensive ends that graduated from that class. I'm not exactly sure if it was Alex Ross, NFL analyst guy, or if there was another YouTuber that did a film analysis on him. But if they take the next steps forward and continue to grow, that defensive line gets a little bit more scary. I will say that and give them credit for that if that happens. But until we see further stardom talent, I just don't see it.
Like I said, they have a lot to develop. Like I think they're a younger team outside of Derek Carr. I think they're a younger team who can really easily develop into a scary team to play against in that division, and they could very easily become in the next, say, like 2-3 years, a real competitor to the Broncos and the Chiefs. Whereas you see some teams and you're like, there's no way that in a few short years they can be good, but you see the like potential that that the Raiders have with young players, and you see Josh Jacobs and things like that, and you're like, okay, I think they know where they're going if they keep on this track and they keep going down this path. I think they have all the potential to be good, but this season I don't see it happening.
Yeah, they are the most average team in the league. And to move on from the Raiders, let's go ahead and talk about the Chargers. They picked up Justin Herbert and Kenneth Murray in the first round. Not bad pickups. They have a bit of a quarterback battle this offseason, with Tyrod Taylor being the assumed starter for now until Justin Herbert beats him out for the starting job. They had a lot of struggles with the offensive line last season, which could be attributed to why Phillip Rivers had 20 interceptions,
and why he was so angry all the time. Like, the man's so angry.
He was very upset. I would imagine he just had a lot of struggles, especially with some of the injuries on that line, and it just was a mix-up all season. So letting Okong leave, or they didn't let him leave. They traded him, They traded him for Try Turner. I think that was a smart move considering how they got Brian Bulaga to replace Okong, and they could now have a better offensive line than they did last season, but they still have some holes. I don't think the center position is necessarily fixed with Pouncey, or they still have a hole at the other tackle spot. And the reason why I feel like the Chargers will not get back to 12-4 like they were just 2 seasons ago is mainly because they only really had 2 draft picks that I feel like are going to make a big impact, and that's Justin Herbert and Kenneth Murray. And also the fact that, they have an underrated defense, but until the offense is figured out, I don't feel like 12-4 is realistic. I feel like 9-7 is a really good spot for them, and I feel like they actually will compete. It'll really come down to the Broncos and Chargers for that 5th or 6th spot. And basically, my thought process is, with Nick Vigil being the strong side linebacker, Kenneth Murray has to start right away. He's definitely good enough to play, and he's definitely someone that can go sideline to sideline, but he's going to have to learn a lot real fast.
Yeah. From the Chargers standpoint, at least, and I was saying this during the draft even, I really think Justin Herbert, in my opinion, I really think he has a lot of raw talent and that he could be good. He just really needs to be coached on like what he needs to do, because I've watched some film on him, and I would see him like loft balls into the air that didn't necessarily need to go that way. Yeah, he ended up completing them and things like that. But in the NFL, when you start just like chucking balls up to like just floating them down the field, you end up having bad things happen pretty quick.
Yeah. And I was thinking of Derwin James and Casey Hayward. They experienced a lot of different injuries on defense, and I feel like that kind of just stunted this team's ability to do anything last season. So it could be that 8-8 is their worst case scenario for me, just because I feel like Phillip Rivers didn't have the offensive line in front of him to really get anything going, and also the defense was hurt so bad. That's why 5-11 happened, and next season they're gonna have all their players healthy, and they're going to have a rookie quarterback probably playing most of the season. And I just don't know how to feel about Justin Herbert. I personally did not like Justin Herbert. I didn't like his film as much as I did like Joe Burrow or
Obviously not Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I just
But, yeah, I guess you.
I don't know how much I can believe in Justin Herbert. I feel like in the end, I feel like they'll end up having like a losing record by the time he gets in there. We'll just say they're like 2-5 or 2-4, maybe like worst case scenario, they're like 3-8, like the Broncos were last season before they put in Drew Lock, and then they start Justin Herbert, and then he starts winning you games. But you just can't get past the fact that the Chargers lost 9 games by less than a touchdown, which would then make you think, well, this team's got a lot of potential to really do good next season. But with a rookie quarterback that I don't like, it just...
Well, you see with that record last year, and especially you saying they only lost, what was that, 9 games?
Yeah, they lost 9.
Yeah, they lost 9 by less than a touchdown, which kind of tells you that their defense was performing like relatively well,
even with injuries.
Yeah, even with injuries, and then you then have to turn towards their offense and be like, look what was going on, because our defense was holding them, and we were scoring, but we couldn't like in that clutch situation go down and score or or just plain old just go and score.
And it's not like they won against worser teams. They beat the Packers.
Yep.
And they were in other games too, like I said before. So they could easily be way better than 8-8, which I predict them going, or 9-7. But it's just a matter of how much Justin Herbert and Kenneth Murray, I feel like, develop, and how well the lineman replacements, them shuffling around some of the linemen, works out. Because this defense is definitely good enough, above average, better than above average, especially with all the players coming back healthy.
Yep.
It's just a matter of if this offense can get going and whether or not Justin Herbert is the guy there.
I really one thing real quick that I'm really excited about. So Nick Vigil, when he was in Cincinnati, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think they did the right thing with him, like played him how he like really needed to be played. But I think him going out to play for the Chargers, I really think that he has potential to just be really good. I think he has potential to go out there and just start like lighting things up, because you can see, like, when you watch any tape from him from Cincinnati, there's a lot of things he's not great at, but I think if being in the right system and being coached up, he can improve on those things to make him where he's decent at them, and the things he is really good at, just skyrocket him for it.
Yeah, I feel like he's going to really benefit from everyone else being really good around him.
Yep.
And I feel like Kenneth Murray, because he plays probably best at weak side and Vigil plays best at strong side, he's going to be in the best position for him to succeed, being a run stopper. Very sound tackler, as long as it's not Lamar Jackson doing pirouettes on him. But
yeah, we all hate to see that.
We all hate to see that. But Vigil's, take it from Bengals fans, he was underrated, and he wasn't going to ever be a star, but he's great starting talent for you.
Yeah.
And considering how everyone else on your team is just on the defensive side is got star talent on that side,
yep,
it'll end up working out for you guys.
Yeah,
so
I really think Nick Vigil just being in the right situation could really help his career.
Yeah. And so that's why I give them at least a 8-8 or a 9-7. On to the Broncos, which is what everyone's so hyped on currently.
Everyone except me.
Everyone except you. And I am a believer that Drew Lock will just get better and better, but I'm not sure if he's going to be able to tango with Mr. Patrick Mahomes, because he's just a different animal. The only saving grace that this team has is that they have a way better defense than the Chiefs do. And
are you sure it's not their backup quarterback, Jeff Driscoll, who we all know and love so much?
No. No, Jeff Driscoll is not going to be the reason why this team succeeds. It will be because of Drew Lock. He went
and good old Melvin Gordon and that whole list of running backs they have.
Yeah, they've got some really good talent on this team. And just to get all the positives from this team. So Drew Lock started his career 4-1. He only lost to the Chiefs, and that game was a blizzard, mind you. And
It is Colorado.
And I think it was actually in Chiefs.
Oh, really?
Chiefs,
really?
Yeah. So
Interesting.
For him to develop, he'll just need some good coaching, which they brought in Pat Shermer, who is known for improving rookie quarterbacks and younger quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
So the offense, I feel like, is going to improve, at least on play calling. The offensive line, they picked up some talent in the draft. Cushenberry and Datane Matui, which was the steal of the draft, in my opinion. He could easily be the next, the guard from the Colts. I can't remember his name. Quentin Nelson. He could easily be the next Quentin Nelson. And if that's the case, you're going to see a huge spike in Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon's rush production. Not to mention that all the offensive weapons that they now have, including Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon, Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, and their 4-4 speedy tight end, also a huge giant. I can't pronounce his name. Not going to even try to, but he's fast.
Oh, you mean Okwagbanum?
Okwagbanum, yes.
I think that's close.
We looked it up, and that's what he says.
Yeah, that's what he says.
That's exactly what he says. So if I get people in the comments saying
he can't even say it a second time. Okwagbanum.
Okwagbanum.
Yeah, Okwagbanum.
Okwagbanum.
That I'm challenging everyone right now who's typing in the comments. Oh, you said it wrong. I'm challenging you to say it 5 times faster right now. Because that is a long name.
We're now a challenge channel.
Yeah, it was a long name, man. We specifically made sure to look that one up.
Yeah, we tried to say it 5 times real fast. Couldn't do it. I want to know what his where he's from, what his heritage is. It would be interesting to find out more about him since he can run so fast at being so tall and all that good stuff. He's gonna be awesome. I just can't wait to watch him. Anyways, their draft, just to go off of that, was the best in the league. They filled in spots for the linemen to shore up the inside with Glasgow and free agency, Cushenberry, Matui. That just takes care of the inside. They got Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler. KJ Hamler is a speedy slot guy, and I absolutely love speedy slot receivers. You just look at the Wes Welkers and the Julian Edelmans of the world. They always seem to just get open. And Jerry Jeudy's probably a bona fide number 1 along with Cortland Sutton. And Cortland Sutton's the bigger guy, and Jerry Jeudy's just your overall good talent. So this team is just stacked when you look at it, especially with Okwagbanum being so fast at the tight end position. This team is a mini Chiefs.
You know, I really think in the draft, I know you say that there's other steals, but I really think Jerry Jeudy was kind of like I think he went a little too far. Like I think somebody should have had Jerry Jeudy like a little snatched him up. But I really think that some teams let Jerry Jeudy go, and I think Jerry Judy's gonna come out to Denver and be like, look, I know you picked people before me. Y'all shouldn't have picked people before me.
Yeah, I agree. They had a lot of steals. I just don't understand how they did it so often. Like I don't know. Oh, Matui's there. Oh, Jerry Jeudy's here. Oh, Okwagbanum is here. And Hamler, we'll just pick up another receiver that's really good. It just, their whole list. They even got a defensive tackle. I can't remember his name. I'll look it up real quick. But he's also, he got picked up way later than he should have. And he should have been like a second-round talent, but ended up going in like the 3rd or 4th round. And he's going to be a force in the inside too. And not to mention that they traded for A.J. Boye and also Jarrell Casey for next to nothing. they plugged in holes from the losses of Derek Wolfe and Chris Harris Jr.
Yeah.
with better talent.
Let me just ask you this real quick. What the heck is going on in the NFL this season in the offseason? So many players are going to places for darn near nothing. Like, are coaches just getting tired of their players, or like, because I'm telling you, Jarrell Casey and freaking AJ Boye, both of those are a steal. Like, they just
AJ Boye was like a 5th round.
Yeah,
and then Jarrell Casey was a 7th round.
Yeah,
and I understand Jarrell Casey's older, but legit was part of the reason why the Titans went to the playoffs in the first place.
Yeah, he was part of their massive defense.
Yeah, so this team is stacked when you look at it on paper. It is ridiculous, and it all will depend on Drew Luck's potential. Is he good enough to tango with Patrick Mahomes? He's got the touch. He's got to work on his awareness and setting his feet more. He's got to get more adapted to an NFL style offense, and now having a new offense coordinator, we got to see how well he does with that. And considering how Pat Shurmur is kind of like a quarterback whisperer for young guys, this could be very, very scary for the Chiefs. I don't necessarily think that they sweep the Chiefs, but I feel like they're going to split very easily. They're going to just depending on where the location is, they're going to split.
We were talking about their defense, and even if you look at it, like, we didn't even talk about still having Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. Like, both of those guys, like, Bradley Chubb is bona fide, like, good.
Yeah.
And Von Miller, he's shown you year in, year out that he may be getting older, but he's not slowing down. Like,
yeah,
he might slow down a little bit. He's not doing stuff he was doing when it was like his 3rd, 4th year in the league, but he is still going out there and leading your team and telling guys exactly what they need to do and going out there and just being.
When you pick up a guy like Jarrell Casey, that requires you to think about double teams.
Yeah.
There we go again.
We go again. Back to the double teams, where I swear every podcast just goes back to the double teams, because if you can get guys that have to get double teams, your linebackers just get freed up so much. And like, people who haven't necessarily played the game of football before, like, at least on a defensive perspective, or like on an offensive line, when you have to double team and you free up that linebacker, especially if you can fight through that double team, that ruins every scheme that you could possibly run on offense, because there's no scheme on earth where it will allow you for 3 men to block 1. That will never happen. And if that happens, something on your offense has gone horribly wrong. Somebody's blocking something wrong. So to have guys like Jarrell Casey and to free up Von Miller, like, Von Miller coming straight at you in open field free, that's a scary thing. That's a scary sight.
So, I mean, it's going to be nuts. The Denver Broncos, they deserve all the hype that they're getting. Whether or not that translates, we'll see. They've got all the talent on paper, and we've talked about how the talent doesn't always necessarily translate.
Yeah. Again, going back to Drew Lock a little bit. I'm gonna be honest with you. I've watched his stuff, and I'm not as impressed as everybody else is. I think he can be a good quarterback, but I think a lot of that's going to depend on Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, those guys around him, kind of coming together and figuring out what they need to do. But a real key factor of their offense, at least on paper, and I know we keep saying on paper, but it really is just like looking at it. Melvin Gordon, Phillip Lindsay, Royce Freeman. All 3 of those guys, even Royce Freeman is their 3rd back, technically. Last year he was their 2nd back, and he was still doing like well. So you have 3 backs that you can rotate in at any point, which is really dangerous, because in the NFL, or even most sports in general, if even like say the game of basketball, if you have 3 point guards on your team or 2 point guards on your team that are just really good, and all they do is like play point guard, so they rotate with each other, and you can keep them fresh, and they're both like really good, high talent, like back to football with Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay. If you can keep those guys fresh, you can just keep running the ball all day, especially if a team is not as good at stopping the run. We saw last year there was obviously teams in the playoffs when the Titans started just running the ball over everybody with Derrick Henry. When you can just start running the ball, and Melvin Gordon obviously isn't the monster that Derrick Henry is, but Melvin Gordon has proven over the past couple of years, maybe not as much last season because of a bunch of politics and this, that, and the other on contracts and
yeah.
everything. But Melvin Gordon's a good running back. Philip Lindsay came out of nowhere and last year and just started lighting things up. And people were like, "Oh well, we gotta take a double take at Philip Lindsay to make sure we don't overlook him." Because if you could, it's easy to overlook him, especially since he's a shorter guy.
Yeah.
But things
Another
like that, yeah.
another interesting fact about Philip Lindsay, he's one of the top running backs to gain yards before contact, which is one of the reasons why he was so effective last season. I feel like with the additions that they made in the inside, you're going to see a huge spike in production on the run game. And because of that, you're going to see all three of them really just make impacts one way or another. They're going to be able to run the football up the middle, and Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay both can run outside. They can catch the ball. It's going to be tough for defenses to really figure out what they're going to come after them with, because, they got 2 good tight ends. They've got 3 really good receivers. They got 2 really good running backs. They've got great inside linemen now. They've got, a stellar defense. It'll be interesting to see how much they improve, though. 7-9 last season. I feel like they go at least 10-6, even with basically a rookie quarterback, because they literally got everything figured out except for like one tackle spot.
I'm really kind of wondering how. So with Drew Lock, so he did play games last year, and he did do well, but I'm kind of wondering how. So with just comparing it real quick to Aaron Rodgers, who got to sit behind like Brett Favre for a few seasons, I'm kind of wondering if Drew Lock kind of missed out on that whole sit behind a quarterback for 1 or 2 seasons and learn. Because, let's be honest, he sat behind Joe Flacco, who when he went to Denver was already kind of like hurt, basically. He left the Ravens because the season before he'd been hurt, and Lamar Jackson came in and lit it up, basically. So the Ravens were like, well, we're moving on from you. We don't need you anymore, Joe Flacco. And Joe Flacco went out there, and Joe Flacco was still pretty much hurt.
Broken down.
Yeah, he was broken down. So I hate to say a guy was well past his prime, but he kind of was at that point. So, obviously he still had the mind to teach Drew Lock some things, but the industry of football, we'll just call it an industry for right now, is actually really competitive. So a lot of the guys don't teach their backups a lot. Like, they'll be like, look, this is what you have to do in this situation, but I'm not going to help you do it. Because obviously you don't want to be replaced. Nobody ever wants to be like, oh, you're too old, get out of here, you're replaced. Nobody wants their successor to just overtake them. They want to be there as long as they can. But it's still like, I assume Drew Lock probably did learn some things from Flacco, but I don't know if that there was much that Flacco could teach Drew Lock that Drew Lock didn't necessarily already know.
Yeah. And so that is why I'm very high on them. Thomas is not, just because of Drew Lock. And it is a big question mark about Drew Lock, but I've seen the film on him so far, and if I were to be a betting man, I would be betting on the Broncos.
See, one last thing real quick about Drew Lock. I hate to sound so negative about him, but I've seen it before where a quarterback will come in the end of the season, do really well, and then he'll come back next season because he's their starting guy. He goes in and then he just stinks, and he's just not what they thought he was, and he was just riding a high horse of coming in. Yeah, Nick Foles, he is a premier backup quarterback. He'll come in and just light up and win you games, but the second he has to start the season, you're not getting a whole lot of production out of him. So I'm like, Drew Lock, all the potential to be really great, and especially if Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, and all those guys can all get on the same page, they can be dangerous. But again, it's all on paper. We'll see when the season starts for them.
And the last team that we're going to talk about, which we don't have a lot to say about this team, the Chiefs.
There's not a lot you can say, honestly.
Yeah, there's not a lot we can say. They didn't change a whole lot. They did lose some players, but they filled them in with some lesser backup talent, and if we're gonna look at their draft, they picked up 2 guys I feel like are gonna start instantly: Clyde Edwards-Helaire, William Gay Jr. Basically, Patrick Mahomes, Patty Mahomeboy. As long as he is
Still so weird that you call him that.
Patty Mahomeboy.
Yeah.
I love calling Patty Mahomeboy. He's my homeboy. Anyways, as long as he's starting, and as long as Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and most of the line stay intact, they will always have a championship caliber offense. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a great running back. He's gonna be awesome out there. They're gonna have Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a pass catching back, but he's more than that. He can bounce it out to the outside and run around. He's really elusive. He's gonna basically be a little mini version of Kareem Hunt.
Yep.
And I know Kareem Hunt was more of a bruiser. He can break a tackle. Basically, anytime that someone tried to tackle him first, he'd break the first tackle. And I know that that's why they had such a great season 2 years ago and why Patrick Mahomes had an MVP-like season. But with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, it's a different type of running back that's built for what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like Patrick Mahomes is going to have another MVP season with him in the starting lineup.
You know, I really think with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Damian Williams back there, it's kind of like a 1-2 punch, like a really good 1-2 punch that they're going to have. Because I think both guys can easily catch out of the backfield. You just catch out of the backfield and get going. And they're both hard to tackle in open space. Like, they're both pretty elusive. So when you start getting into the run game, obviously their offensive line was pretty decent. You have to have a decent offensive line to win a championship. There's no winning without them. Hate to tell all those super quarterback fans and the super receiver fans, but without an offensive line, you can't do anything.
It's true.
But with their offensive line being how it is, I think Damian Williams and Helaire both have all the potential to just light up the league, especially having Patrick Mahomes. Because, okay, you have Patrick Mahomes and then Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Mecole Hardman. Like, let's be honest. Like, that receiving core with some running backs that can do some things, nobody's going to be worried about the running backs. They're going to be like, oh, darn, we have to cover Travis Kelce. We have to cover Tyreek, Sammy, Mecole Hardman, all those guys. They got to cover them, and then you leave the running backs open for rushing lanes, and for just screens out of the backfield if they want to. Yeah. And we all know that Patrick Mahomes is freaking super accurate. Yeah. So he'll throw a ball like the one, what was that, against the Texans when he dragged his foot on the line of scrimmage and threw the ball to Travis Kelce, not even really looking at him in the end zone. And he just does some crazy things that I'm like, Patrick Mahomes being in there is crazy. And I know that you kind of think as long as Patrick Mahomes is in there, they're invincible. But so you don't want Chad Henne playing a lot of games, but if Chad Henne has to come in and finish a game for Patrick Mahomes or something, I think they have enough around them. And Chad Henne is not a good quarterback by any means, but he's a guy that can put balls in where they need to be, kind of thing. So I think even if Chad Henne has to come in and play 1 or 2 games, I think they'll still be okay. I think they can still win those.
I mean, that's what happened last season anyways.
Yeah. So, I mean, you do always, when you're going into war, you always want your best guy, like Patrick Mahomes. You always want him. But if they really had to, Chad Henne can do it. It's not that you really want him to be in there, but I think if he does have to come in, they don't really have to worry about a lot. Maybe more of a leadership aspect when he has to come in, because he is a veteran guy, but he isn't running reps with the ones at practice. He's running reps with the twos and the scout team and things like that. So
yeah, and to go now further into this team with William Gay Jr., it was a bit of a gamble to pick him at that linebacker spot, but he was, I think, the best available linebacker at that point in time. If he ends up being a starter and plays really well, this defense just got much better. They really needed a linebacker, and William Gay Jr. graded out really well on PFF, and I personally really loved him. He was a lot of like a younger Vontez,
Mm-hmm.
and I know people are like, "Oh, why would you say that?" Well, he was very aggressive. He was getting after people, and with the small amount of time that he played, he just would just absolutely wreck people. Just
Mm-hmm.
look at his game film. He was all over the place, interceptions galore, causing fumbles. He was really good, really talented, and if that ends up paying off for them, they still are Super Bowl favorites in my opinion.
Yep.
I thought Patrick Mahomes was a Super Bowl favorite anyways, even last season alone, and they had just lost the Patriots, and there's no reason to doubt the Patriots to be the next Super Bowl winners.
Yep.
But this team has another Super Bowl window. I wouldn't doubt them to try to go for a repeat. It would be very hard. There's going to be a lot of talent in front of them that they have to beat. I don't feel like the Chargers and the Broncos are going to be pushovers next season, but they with Patrick Mahomes, they've got it. They've got it.
And transition a little bit over to their defense. When you look at the names on their defense, what you do see Travarius Ward, Tyrann Mathieu, which a lot of people know, the Honey Badger, Alex Okafor, Frank Clark. Those guys are just staple guys. Like, they get their job done. They may not be the most flashy on earth. They may not do some crazy 40-foot hop to to intercept the ball, but those guys are just like solid guys that you know you can count on, which I think is a big part of the Chiefs defense, like their game in general. They have those guys that can just, like I said, just lock it down for you, and you don't have to worry about, like, Patrick Mahomes doesn't have to go out on offense and worry about, I have to score right now because if I don't score, my defense is going to give up points. So, like, they don't have necessarily what a lot of people would consider an absolutely crazy, like, Steelers-esque defense that just shut down everything, but they do have a good core defense that can help them win games. They're not going to end up falling like the like we were talking about earlier, how the defense is like, well, I'm trying here and we're not really getting anywhere. So I really think, especially with Tyrann Mathieu, with leadership, Travarius Ward, those guys, Frank Clark, they can just go in there and they really can just shut down a team on any Sunday.
And now that we've wrapped up all the teams in the AFC West, let's talk about record predictions. What do you have the Raiders going?
So the Raiders, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think they 2 to 3 years from now, I think the Raiders are going to be good, but there's going to be that learning curve, that baby steps that they need to take, where it's going to be some growing pains, especially and I'm going to be honest with you, they have to get over them quick, or draft another quarterback, because Derek Carr is not super old, but he has been hurt a little bit, which tends to ramp your age up a lot quicker. Even though that sounds kind of weird, when you start getting hurt, you just start getting more and more brittle. When you break something, it breaks easier next time, and the next time, and the next time. So, I really think that 7-9. I mean, I don't see them doing much better than 7-9. If they go 8-8, I'd honestly be surprised. I'd be like, cool, that's a step up for you. But I also think that the bottom could completely fall out with. So they have a lot of young guys, which means they need a lot of young guys to step up and kind of be leaders a little bit. So I think the bottom could completely fall out on the Raiders if Derek Carr doesn't stay healthy. If Derek Carr doesn't stay healthy, then they have to find some other guys who are going to lead the team, and they have a lot of young guys, so it's kind of a yikes when it comes to that. So I mean, 7-9, I think is realistic for them. Like I said, no, not a whole lot better.
Yeah, I think they benefited a lot off of the Chargers having a lot of injuries and having a lot of problems, and the Broncos were also, they didn't have a great quarterback until Drew Lock came into town. So I feel like they really benefit off of that, and they're not going to this season. So I'm gonna actually predict them to go 6-10, just a game less than last season. And I know Raiders fans probably don't like me saying that, but you know, I need to take a better look at the schedule for next
Yeah, the
season.
strength of schedule for them.
We base our record predictions off of just the talent that they've acquired and their record from last season, and we'll do a video eventually going over our exact record predictions. But from what I can see from this division, I just don't see them having I don't see them splitting everyone. I see them probably losing both games to the Chiefs. See them potentially losing both games to the Broncos too, and they could lose both games to the Chargers too. They're way better teams than
basically.
Raiders.
Basically, it just comes down to the fact that the Raiders again are just in a rough division. Their division is really good. I really think if they, like I said earlier, if they were playing against Dallas and the Eagles, I personally don't think that Dallas and the Eagles are going to be insane this year. They might do well, but if the Raiders were in that division, they'd have a chance to be fighting real well.
Yeah, they only have to beat the Giants and the Redskins.
Yeah. So, I mean, you really, when it comes down to it, most divisions basically have two teams that are not as good and two teams that are usually pretty good, and the two teams will fight for first and second, and the other two teams will pretty much fight for fourth.
Really?
But that's not really how it is in this division. I mean, the Chargers have a chance of being good. Kind of depends on the quarterback situation. We talked about the Broncos being well and the Chiefs doing well, but yeah, the Raiders I don't see doing much better than 7-9.
Yeah.
So,
and now, what about the Chargers? Where do you feel like Chargers are going?
I think the Chargers have a chance of being that last team in kind of thing. They're gonna have to play hard for it because I think that last team in is going to come down to because there's going to be a lot of teams with the same record that are going to be vying for that spot. But I really think that's going to come down to the tiebreaker things that they have, like the strength of schedule, the points. Because I don't think when they do the tiebreaker thing, I think strength of schedule kind of plays into it like tiny bit, but not a lot because a lot of teams you can't really help your strength of schedule. It's kind of what you got dealt basically. So then they go and look at the points, how many points you scored, the points differential, and things like that. I really think that I think max the Chargers will be maybe 10-6 if they have and that would be them beating the Broncos and the Raiders both. I think there's a possibility they could beat the Broncos. They could do that, but I think it kind of again it just depends on Justin Herbert. If he can come in and be more than what I saw on tape. A lot of his tape is just him as raw talent. Like it looks a lot like he just hasn't been coached. Like he's obviously been coached, but he hasn't been coached to a level where he can just make throws and not just air the ball out or do this, that, and the other. So, I mean, they could have another 5-11 season, but I don't see him 10 games, 10-6 about. If they're lucky, I kind of think that means they have to get lucky and beat Denver, but I think, yeah, more realistically, just 8-8, 9-7 will be where they're at probably. I mean, I know we had them, like, they lost 9 games, less than a touchdown. But at the end of the day, you still got to think they still lost those games. So
yeah, if I were to look at this, and I'll just give them the benefit of the doubt, and let's say they split those 9 games, and we'll round it up so they won 5 of those games next season, they would be 10-6, like you said. So my prediction for them is to go probably anywhere from the ranges of 5-11 and 10-6 because it really just depends on Justin Herbert, and I personally don't like Justin Herbert. I don't feel like he's going to be the quarterback that they need, and I could be really wrong. I used to like Justin Herbert, but he has accuracy issues and pocket awareness problems, and he just gets scared when he's pressured.
Yeah, he gets spooked really easy, which was kind of one of the main things I was watching. And people were talking about how he was better than Tua Tagovailoa, and I'm like, I mean, maybe, but it's just because he has more like film from the previous season, basically, than Tua does. And I'm like, I don't really think that he's better. I think that he has bad coaching from Saban, whereas Justin Herbert was out at Oregon, and
Pac-12 is pretty tough division to really compete in and compete against the other divisions. Excuse me. And I just didn't like what I saw from Justin Herbert relatively compared to the other quarterbacks that were in the draft, like Joe Burrow and.
Like we're not saying by any means that he's bad. He's still a good quarterback.
I think he deserved the first round grade that he got. That's not what I was saying. I just don't like him more than I did the other talent that were picked in front of him. So that's why I say 5-11 is realistic still, and 10-6 is also very realistic for this team. But continuing on from the Chargers, let's talk about the Broncos. What do you think the Broncos will go?
I hate to be that guy. I really want to hate on the Broncos right now because everybody else is hyping them up. And every time it happens when teams are getting hyped up, the bottom just falls out. And then everybody that's hyping them up kind of looks stupid. So I always try to err on the side of caution when everybody's hyping someone. But, I mean, I really don't think they do worse than 9-7. I mean, let's be honest. They got, with the talent that's there, if they do worse than 9-7, the wheels have fallen off. Like something went wrong. Drew Lock didn't perform, or their defense just out of nowhere just wasn't where it was at, or where they should have been. I mean, again, Phillip Lindsay, Melvin Gordon, Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant, Jerry Jeudy, just to name a few. Like that's crazy to have on your offense. That's a greatest show on turf kind of weapons kind of thing. Like they have so many weapons that they can go to. The only thing that's stopping this team would be Drew Lock if he can't perform. I mean, their defense is still the Broncos' defense. They still have everything they need, I think, to be a top-tier defense.
Possibly even better.
Yeah. And, I mean, at the end of the day, it sort of starts to come down to coaching a little bit. I mean, we know out there that we got quarterback whisperers everywhere, but, I mean – I think 9-7 is the lowest that they'll get. I think they have a really good chance of splitting with the Chiefs. I don't think they'll beat them both times. I just don't see that happening. But I could see them easily destroying the Raiders and then destroying the Chargers. But I could also see them losing one of the Chargers. But yeah, I think this team it really just all depends on Drew Lock. I think there's all the intangibles there. You can see. He's got all the weapons around him and everything. His offensive line needs to they've shored up a lot of the line and just got him where they need to be. But as long as he can stay on his feet and throw from the pocket, I think he'll be pretty good. And I think they'll be around like 10-6, 11-5. I think they'll have a chance of being real good.
Yeah, I personally have them at the lowest, like you said, 9-7. I can see them going to 12-4. It wasn't too long ago where the Chiefs and the Chargers were both 12-4.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're going to be that 5th or 6th spot on the playoff seed. Probably the 5th spot. They're going to be the highest ranked
wild card team.
Well,
we call them wild cards, but there's not really wild cards anymore.
Yeah, whatever that position is, they're going to be pretty high up there. I just don't see them beating the Chiefs, though, in the division unless something happens to Patrick, which could happen. He's been injured now.
Yeah.
So, like you said, people get more and more hurt as time goes on. So we can see some sort of tear down, but
yeah, I just really don't see the brakes falling off the Broncos. There would have to be quite a few things go wrong.
There's still too much stability there with the defense being as good as it's going to be, and the offense has too many weapons to not perform.
Even if Drew Lock starts looking like Jameis Winston out in Tampa, I'm like, I think those guys are going to go out for passes that Drew Lock throws, and they're going to make Drew Lock look good regardless, I think. I don't know that Drew Lock is going to be insane like everyone thinks he will be, but I do think all the talent around him are going to make him look a little better. And don't get me wrong, he could be insane, but if he looks insane by himself, his receivers are going to make him look that much better. I really think all the talent around him is just going to make him look like an A-plus quarterback. Yeah. If he performs as everyone wants him to.
Okay. And then our last team for the record predictions, the Chiefs. What do you got them at?
The Chiefs. So I actually took the liberty for the Chiefs, just looking at their strength of schedule, just because I was a little bit interested. And for the most part, their schedule outside of their division is kind of weak. They play the Jets. They got the Patriots, who we don't know what the Patriots are going to be. I mean, obviously they have the Raiders twice, so it's like that's kind of like free games. They got the Dolphins. So I don't know. I feel like they have all the potential in the world to only lose 3 games. Yeah. They could easily just, boom, 13-3, like just not even lose that many games. But I really don't see them having less than 10 wins. Because, again, they're just so good, and they retained.
I don't see them going any less than 11, to be honest. Yeah. And that would be like that would be something you go bet on. Like if I was a sports bettor or a sports betting analyst, this would be the team I'd bet to go above that 11-5 mark that they have currently. Yep. I think it's kind of easy to predict that, but if something happened though to Patrick Mahomes, then just
let's be honest. If they lose or if they don't win 10 games, if they go say 9-7, we'll say the brakes fell off of them because they have so much just talent everywhere. And we saw that in all of the playoffs. They were down, and then they just all of a sudden start scoring, and they win. Score, and they win. And it even happened in the Super Bowl versus apparently the best team in the NFC, who were insane and were moving the ball. All of a sudden, it all just stopped, and Patrick Mahomes started taking over. And everybody wants to credit it to that pass to Tyreek down the field, where Tyreek just kind of ran around in the wide open for a while. And then Patrick threw it, but it really takes like a different minded person to see, hey, we're down by this much, I can still do it. There's a lot of guys, and I've played with some guys over the years who have, once you get down, their head starts going down. They don't want to think about it anymore. They're like, well, we've lost this already. And once you start to get into that mentality, for any position outside of quarterback, it's bad because your team starts seeing it. But when you're playing quarterback and you start getting like that, it's really bad because your team sees that and they're like, well, why should we even try anymore if he doesn't believe in us? So I think Patrick Mahomes just has that positive vibe about him, and he's always that go-getter, like, we can do this, we got this no matter what. We could be down 40 points, and I can throw that many touchdowns as long as my boys on defense can get my back. So, yeah, I really think that, like, honestly, they can win 15 games. They could. At any point, you could just be like, well, they're winning 15 games. Maybe they lose one to, say, Baltimore or New Orleans, like something like that. But
yeah, I mean, to me, this is how highly regarded I feel about Patrick Mahomes. When I have my child, just like how my dad likes to show me the bus and the one the Houston Oilers running back with the giant thighs. I can't remember his name right now off the top of my head. That's a shame. But or like Joe Montana or Roger Staubach. Like, he would show me these guys that he just idolized because they were so good back in the day. Patrick Mahomes is going to be one of those guys I show my kid. This was like one of the greatest of all time.
We're going to be throwing Patrick Mahomes up on those VR screens we got in the future.
Yeah, like, look at this, son. Patrick Mahomes. Oh, my God. He was one of the greatest quarterbacks in my generation. And, that's just how good he is. And until something happens to him, which, God, I hope not.
Knock on wood.
Yeah. Just like, I absolutely love Patrick Mahomes. If I wasn't already seen, or if I haven't already clarified that, I really like Patrick Mahomes, and I also really love Joe Daddy.
And we're not really like a fantasy like a fantasy football channel, but Patrick Mahomes is the safest bet you can make.
Yeah, he actually won me my fantasy his rookie season.
Yep.
I had him as a rookie quarterback, and he just absolutely tore it up.
The little sleeper you had there.
Yeah, I always manage to get the sleepers. I had Lamar Jackson, just to go off topic here, last season, but my dad was so mad that I apparently got him first. I was like, here, I don't want him.
Yeah, so we had to play a little fair and give him up, and then suddenly Lamar Jackson starts doing
having
what
an
Lamar
MVP
Jackson
season. Yeah, so I was not happy about that. But
no, we weren't upset at all. No, why would we?
Yeah, he likes to shove it in my face, just like he did in the comment section in a couple videos. But anyways, okay. Well, that about wraps up our podcast for this week. Do you have any closing thoughts?
Nope. Still, like I've said every time, really excited for this season.
Yeah, I am too. And that does it for Championship Formula. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. We really appreciate any feedback that you guys have in the comment section.
Yep.
And look forward to us doing an analyst video, possibly. Some different things we want to talk about, possibly with the Bengals and their receivers. So that does it for me.
We'll see you guys next time.
It's Championship Formula signing off.
See you.